Hi guys, we're live. I'm just sat here chilling out. Let me just quickly tell a few people that we are live. Let's have a look. So the kids are here, the dogs are here, so we might get a bit of noise. Let me just find Defending Elvis Presley. Now don't forget guys, we have a Defending Elvis Presley Facebook page that has a chat on it as well. So if you want to join that, please go ahead. It's completely free. Okay, let me just go on to our Facebook page. 1 second. We are live at the moment. So, let me just think. Here we go. Live. So what I'm going to do, I want to carry on playing this old video. Let's just tell a couple of people. Tony, where are you? You've disappeared. Tony? Right, okay. Let's tell a few. Tell Elizabeth and Lorna. Should we say your names? So we've got Lorna, Elizabeth. Okay. And we've got a few others. Right. Let's go over. I've done Instagram. Hi Cherie, how we going? I've got a little video that I'm going to start playing. I'm just quickly letting a few people know on Instagram and on our messenger. Yeah. Right, remember, gonna get where you off to? All right, okay, have fun. Right, I'm just quickly letting a few know. Where are we? So we've just done a dog walk, which actually is quite tiring in the end. I have been on the go since ages. It's a bit noisy, sorry guys. Let's press play on this. See if you like it. Now, I found it a while ago and we only managed to watch the first part of it. So you should like it. It's some very vintage footage and it sort of is a bit of an eye-opener to when Vernon passed, and it has some interesting information about Priscilla, Graceland, Elvis's will, Vernon's will, how Vernon died and stuff like that.
Mother of the late Elvis Presley died this morning at Baptist Hospital. He was 63 years old. John Bennett has this report from the hospital.
Word traveled quickly this morning. Only about an hour after Vernon Presley had died, the small conference room outside the hospital's administrative office was filled with newsmen. At about 10:45, hospital spokesman Steve Reynolds came in to make this short announcement.
Mr. Vernon Presley was readmitted to Baptist Memorial Hospital, Memphis, Tennessee, on May the 29th, 1979, and he experienced increasing difficulty with an irregular heartbeat. He was comfortable and alert during this hospitalization and was in good spirits. Mr. Presley died at 9:20 a.m. on June the 26th, 1979, following a severe attack of irregular heartbeats.
The official cause of death was listed as ventricular fibrillation. In other words, heart failure. Presley had been in and out of hospitals with heart problems for years. Okay. But during his most recent hospital stay, officials say his condition worsened. This morning, though, he was reported to be resting comfortably and in good spirits.
So it does seem, guys, that when Vernon first went into hospital, I don't think they actually thought he was going to die. I mean, this picture, I don't know who took this picture of Priscilla and Vernon and Lisa.
That many cars winding up the road to the mansion.
It's sad. Very sad.
Did you hear?
Yes, I have.
What do you think?
It's terrible.
How do you feel about it?
Well, it was a surprise. I didn't realize till I got here that it had happened.
Will he be buried alongside?
So this bit is like, I didn't even know this happened, that Vesta come out and was questioned by the news companies, and then he speaks to the fans.
News of Vernon's death spread quickly among the fans out at Graceland. It was obvious even to those who had not heard that something was different. The gates, normally open to visitors, were closed. And a normal day never saw that many cars winding up the road to the mansion.
It's sad. Very sad. Yes, I am. It's terrible.
How do you feel about it?
Well, it was a surprise. I didn't realize till I got here that it had happened.
Will he be buried alongside Elvis and his...
Be buried here tonight.
When will the funeral be?
I don't know that yet. Everything's a little too soon. We'll have to find out.
So when you listen to this, it's like it's just happened.
I wish I could tell you now, but I can't. I don't know. I've got to get away from the gate and go check out as quick as I get a man to get it running. So I'm very sorry. I wish I could help you more, but I don't know that much about it. I just know he's gone.
I think he says, I just know he's gone. Is that what he says? It's very hard to make out. Obviously, this is old footage, guys. You know, 1979. What was the actual date that Vernon died? Let's have a look. Hi, Tony. Oh. Hey, Tony's here. Hi, I was worried. Hi, Tony, I was worried. Tony, I was worried about you. I'm so pleased Tony's here. Thank you. That's good because Tony. I was worried. Anyway, so when it comes to Lisa and Priscilla were massive. Somehow, Vernon eventually makes the decision, unless it had already been made for him, that he was going to allow Priscilla to be co-executor. So it was a big deal, guys. So it says here he died on the 26th of June 1979. So, and he was born on the 10th of April 1916. I wonder if it says any details. After his son's death, Vernon Presley remained at Graceland to help manage the estate and Presley's business affairs. What did Vernon say after Elvis died? I am more heartbroken than I can express over the Elvis's death, yet I'm comforted by the sure knowledge that my son was a gift from God and his life was always in God's hands. Yeah?
Sad. I feel very sorry for the whole family.
I think it's a very sad thing.
Don't give any more souvenir papers around here for a while. If you can't show us no respect, we'll have to have a law out here.
Vernon's brother Vester told those at the gates that Graceland would remain closed the rest of the day and possibly the rest of the week.
Vernon, like his son Elvis, was well known for helping people in need. Just this past month, Eyewitness News aired a story about a woman who came to visit Elvis's grave from Canada. Sheila Plant and a friend of hers were robbed at a motel near Graceland. Miss Plant is confined to a wheelchair and needs daily medication. The medicine was also stolen. Vernon Presley saw our story about Miss Plant and came to her aid. Afterwards, we talked to Mrs. Plant about her impressions of Vernon Presley.
We went into his room, and he's a very wonderful man as far as I can see, and he's happy, and we shook hands, and he gave us a check here for that amount. He just said that he was sorry that a thing like this had to happen, and with the money that he gave us, he said he hopes it will get us back to Canada, and that some of it will help us to get around Memphis and see some things.
There are a lot of people who are having fond memories of Vernon Presley today. George Klein was a longtime friend of the family.
He certainly was that friend, and when John Bennett talked...
So I think it was shocking news for the whole world. I don't think everyone was expecting Vernon to die so soon after Elvis.
With Klein this afternoon, he told us about the effect Elvis's death had on Vernon.
I think that Elvis passing away had a tremendous blow on Mr. Presley. I think that his will was really dampened to go on. He loved Elvis more than anything in the world. And with Elvis leaving us, it really almost destroyed Mr. Presley. And quite a few of the close friends, guys in the group and all, we quite often mention the fact that we were extremely worried about Mr. Presley because, as I repeat, his will was really cut down to go on. And a lot of times when I would talk to Mr. Presley over the past year and a half, almost 2 years now, quite often Elvis's name would come up, and we would reminisce about the good times and the fun times, and I could detect a sad note in his voice at that time.
Well, I mean, I don't think anything mattered more to Vernon after Gladys than Elvis. Yeah, they were very, very close. Yeah, they would argue, because what father and son doesn't argue? But there was a deep closeness there. Of course, when Gladys passed, the closeness, I think, got even stronger. Now, Vernon was the money man. He took care of the money. He had a hell of a responsibility. You know, we've all seen his office. That I just think Vernon really did his best to try and look after Elvis's financial affairs and look out for Elvis. So really, once Elvis passed, he probably felt like he'd lost everything. So I can't even imagine it, what he went through. I've always thought Vernon was an honourable man that always tried to do the right thing. And I just, you know, the way that George Klein talks about that Vernon would always just keep talking about the old days, reminiscing. Of course he did. And let's face it, he didn't really last even 2 years after Elvis passed. So he was heartbroken. And I do believe you can die from a broken heart. I think it wasn't just the fact he had heart problems. He was completely gutted.
And the conversations a lot of time would trail off very sadly. And I would try to change the tone of the conversation to another subject.
Shelby County Mayor Bill Morris expressed his sadness at the death of Vernon Presley. Morris also talked about plans for an Elvis Presley museum and how he does not think the plans will be...
Right, so this is part... I'm going to rewind this a little bit. This is part of the reason I'm playing this. Now remember, we've all been spoon-fed, in my opinion, lies. Let me just get the book. That Priscilla prevented Graceland from being sold off and broken up. We all know, well, I know from the research I've done, that Memphis City were never going to allow Graceland's Elvis's home to be broken up, ever. So these interviews where Priscilla says in front of Lisa Marie, they were going to even strip the wallpaper off the walls and break it all up and sell it all off and Elvis would be forgotten. It's just rubbish, complete rubbish. And Lisa Marie fell for it. When Priscilla is saying it in this interview, Lisa is like nodding her head. Like, Lisa honestly for a time believed that Priscilla had saved the day. That Priscilla had come up with the idea of the living museum. It's just complete garbage. It was all at hand. It was all going to happen before Priscilla stepped in and jumped on the bandwagon and then took full credit. Priscilla has always taken full credit for saving Graceland. It's rubbish. For opening the museum. It's rubbish. Let's keep listening, guys. So this is a bit of proof that the Memphis City were already organising things, were already getting ready to open Graceland as a memorial museum for Elvis, and it was never going to be sold off. Yes, there's a possibility Memphis City may have bought it. I think that's possible. We know there was a guy called Morgan Maxfield was involved who died in a plane crash, who supposedly was engaged to Priscilla. I don't know the details. Jack Sodden was his assistant. So let's just keep listening, guys.
Almost 2 years now. Quite often Elvis's name would come up, and we would reminisce about the good times and the fun times, and I could detect a sad note in his voice at that time. And the conversations a lot of time would trail off very sadly, and I would try to change the tone of the conversation to another subject.
Shelby County Mayor Bill Morris expressed his sadness at the death of Vernon Presley. Morris also talked about plans for an Elvis Presley museum and how he does not think the plans will be impeded.
So right, this is the bit, guys. This is the bit. This to me is proof that it had nothing to do with Priscilla, and that it was already at hand. Even the banks behind the scenes were very heavily involved.
And plans were not only in his hands, but in the hands of the staff and people who were working with him. And I presume that the Colonel Parker efforts, along with others connected with the estate, will pursue the museum or something to commemorate or to support the memory of Elvis Presley, and certainly.
So Vernon was dealing with it. Colonel Tom Parker was dealing with it, and there was even a guy. Have you heard of Todd Slaughter? At some point, he was doing tours around the Graceland home as well. There was more to it than just, oh, it was Priscilla's idea.
Morris says he hopes to be able to announce firm plans for the museum August 16th. That's the second anniversary of Elvis's death. The chairman of City Council, Pat Vanderskat, told us Presley's death today is a tragedy which saddens all Presley fans. She, too, talked about plans for a museum, specifically the city's continuing effort to buy Graceland.
So this bit, I understand, that the city wanted, the city were not going to let it get broken up. They was, in a worst case scenario, they would have took it over. It was never going to get all sold off and broken up. This is the big lie.
That has been a priority item for the administration and council, and will continue to be, even probably more accelerated in view of Mr. Presley's death, to make sure.
So do you hear that? More accelerated after Presley's death, yeah? Vernon's, which just completely proves that this was all being dealt with and handled before Vernon passed.
That the heirs will work with us, because our hope from all of us is that there can be a living memorial, and a better fitting tribute would be to have Graceland. So we certainly will be pursuing it with the appropriate individuals.
So you see that? They had no intention of breaking it up, selling it off. It was happening, yeah? So actually, it does remind me of a comment that came through from Chris. I wonder if I can find it. It was a very long comment, but I think it's worth reading. Chris has given me loads of information about the possibility. Yeah, let me just find, all to do with Priscilla's involvement and how everything's been twisted, so we're not told the truth. I did take a picture of it, so let me just see if I can find. There was one very long comment. Chris has sent me a lot of great comments, but there was one in particular that stood out to me. Let me just see if I can find it. See this picture? I saw this picture here came up on. Look at this. It shows Elvis and Vernon. They're digging something. I think they're making a swimming pool. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but that came up on Facebook somewhere. But let's just have a look. Let's find it. Right, I think this is it. Where are we? I've had some really great comments. I've had one from the girl who met Elvis. That was a great comment. But I want to get this one from Chris. I think it's important. Right. Right. So this is a long. This is quite a complex comment. It's not just to do with Priscilla. It's to do with the girlfriends. I can tell that Chris has strong views about Ginger and about Linda. The bit I want to read is the bit about Priscilla. Let's have a look. So where can we start? We're going to start. The last night of his life, he told her he was going to read in his chair. I know this is to do with Elvis passing. I want to get the right bit. No, that's the wrong one. So I want to find the right comment, guys. It's important that we read the right comment. It's got to be. I want the specific one that is about Priscilla. Now, here's another one about. That's Chris's comment about the Memphis Mafia. Chris has sent me about 10 comments. Right, let's have a look. I'll play this while I try and find the comment.
We here at Eyewitness News have been unable to confirm the particulars of funeral plans for Vernon Presley. We are told that the funeral is to be small, simple service for family and close friends only. It's expected that Vernon will be buried at Graceland next to his wife and Elvis. In Elvis's will, Vernon had been named executor and trustee of the estate. That was nothing new for him. The elder Presley had been handling his son's financial holdings for years. The way Elvis's will was written, when Vernon Presley died, a new executor and trustee would be named in Vernon's will. Well, right now it appears that one of two people might be named: Elvis's ex-wife Priscilla or the National Bank of Commerce here in Memphis. Vernon, as we said, had been living at Graceland along with his sister Delta.
See, someone told me that part of the way that Priscilla got power was that she switched banks. Does anyone know if there's any truth to this? I think they mentioned there the Bank of Commerce. So was this part of the way that Priscilla managed to become so powerful within Graceland? So one comment here says, I truly believe that Lisa changed the will in question. I do not believe Benjamin signed her name. It was a signature Ben was not capable of duplicating. Ben had passed away, so they allowed Priscilla through into negotiations with Riley, resulting in Riley winning control. And Priscilla was outfinished with approximately $1 million legal fees, $445,000 of legal fees, $25,000 as an advisor to Riley. Priscilla gets $100,000. No, is it $10,000 a month for 10 years? It could. Yeah, I think that's right. So that's still not the comment I was looking for.
His brother Vester and his mother, Minnie Mae. They all still live there. And one final note, Elvis's will states that after Vernon's death, only Minnie Mae and Elvis's daughter, Lisa Marie, would continue to be taken care of by the estate.
Vernon Presley began life on the bottom, then watched and helped his son make it right to the top.
In 1916, Vernon Elvis Presley was born, the second son in a family of 5. In 1933, at age 17, he married 21-year-old Gladys Love Smith. Vernon and his brother Vester worked a farm together near Tupelo, Mississippi, raising cotton, corn, soybeans, and a few hogs. On January 8th in 1935, his wife Gladys gave birth to twin boys. One died. The other was named Elvis Aaron. In 1948, Presley took his wife and 13-year-old boy Elvis to Memphis. Presley was looking, along with other Americans, for a better life. 7 years later, he found it when his son Elvis made the big time. On August 14th, in 1958, his wife Gladys Love died. In 1960, Presley remarried to D. Stanley. Vernon started touring with his son, but the pace was too much for him. He had a history of heart trouble. He also suffered from diabetes. In February of '75, Presley was an outpatient at Baptist Hospital with chest pains. In the latter part of 1977, Vernon and Dee were divorced.
So I just want to... Chris has joined us. Chris, I was trying to find your comment, my friend. So Vernon was in hospital with Priscilla, talked him into putting her on as an executor to look out for Lisa's interest. Yeah, but you gave another comment, Chris. I can't find it. I'm sorry. Now, when Priscilla was made the co-executor, what did she do with the banks? You said something that she switched the banks. Because I think initially Memphis City were going to take everything over. They'd already made plans with Morgan Maxfield, with Colonel Tom Parker, with Vernon, developing the area in front of Graceland. So what did Priscilla do with the banks? That is my question, the bit that I'm unsure about.
Later, in 1978, with more chest pains, Presley returned to Baptist Hospital, this time via...
Yeah, Chris, I know that, so as far as I could tell, Priscilla was engaged to Morgan Maxfield for a short while. They weren't together at the time of the plane crash, is that right? The Morgan Maxfield had all the plans in a briefcase on the plane. And then when, after the plane crash, I agree, very cunning Priscilla Presley turned to Jack Soddin, Morgan Maxfield assistant, and really jumped on the bandwagon and carried on these plans to develop and open Graceland as a living museum, obviously for the fans. So did Priscilla switch banks? I understand that she sort of took advantage of Jack Soddin. She used all his knowledge, all his hard work, all the hard work that had been done by Morgan Maxfield, the guy who died in the plane crash. So what was the key thing that where Priscilla was able to try and boast that she saved Graceland, that it was her idea to do the living museum, even though we know she didn't save Graceland and it was not her idea? I'm just interested in what you say, Chris.
Ambulance. On August 16th of 1977, Presley suffered yet another family death. His son Elvis died of a heart failure. Vernon opened his home to the millions of fans who came to pay their last respects to his son, the king of rock and roll.
So these clips to see though, guys, I come across this a few weeks ago. I think all of this is like extraordinary, fascinating footage. Most of this footage I have not seen before.
Evening. Folks from all over the Mid-South and the country are mourning the death of Vernon Presley. Tonight, Elvis' father was 63 years old. Mr. Presley had been admitted to Baptist Hospital many times in the past year or so. He suffered from irregular heartbeats, which required constant care. He last went into the hospital on May 25th, and this morning, in a room on the 12th floor, he died of that same heart ailment. Nurses said he was in good spirits and wasn't suffering any pain. Vernon Presley made few public appearances after Elvis died 2 years ago.
Right, let me just pause it there. I mean, it does seem they didn't actually think he was going to die when he died. They knew he was unwell, but I don't think they thought he was actually going to die. Am I right or wrong? Now, Chris's comment, when she connected with Jack Soddin, she asked to present their proposal for the opening of Graceland. Yes, but that confirms what I think, and that is they had done all the hard work. Obviously, Morgan Maxfield dying in the plane crash suddenly took him out of the loop. Don't forget, as far as I know, Priscilla wanted to keep Colonel Tom Parker on board. We've looked into this. We've done some research into this. And the plan, the way that the public have been tricked is the public feel that Priscilla saved Graceland. It was her idea to open the museum, even though she wasn't even at the opening, was she? She did the launching. She didn't actually turn up for the opening. This is what I've read, yeah? We've all seen the opening video on YouTube. You can see Priscilla proudly boasting about saving Graceland, opening the museum. But from what you're telling me, that she just literally turned to Jack Soddin and probably twisted his arm. We know about the deed of trust, the lien, the debt placed on Graceland, which would have given Priscilla a lot of power, a lot of leverage. So you're saying that she, let me just get it right. She asked Jack Soddin to present the proposal for the opening of Graceland. So she stepped into his shoes, yeah? She stepped into Morgan Maxfield's shoes as well. When she, so let's have a look. Priscilla worked with National Bank of Commerce to become a co-trustee for Graceland. Thank you, Lily. Over the years, I discovered that the name of the bank had changed once she changed banks to bank and was no longer an executor. Right, okay. Vernon died a very young, 63. It's a coincidence. My father died age 63. It's too young. Too young. She coaxed Jack into partnering with her. Now, Jack couldn't say no, could he? I mean, I think Jack Sodden is quite a mild-mannered guy. I have looked into his life and his past. He's just a mild-mannered. He loves Memphis, doesn't he? Yeah. I just think the money that they were going to make from joining hands and opening Graceland, which was a cash cow. Let's face it, they knew it was going to work. They knew it was going to be a success because of the amount of people visiting the graves. Do you agree with that, Chris? There was thousands of people daily visiting the graves of Elvis and Gladys. Yeah. Going up to the meditation gardens because they had to allow them at a certain time every day, was it? So they knew that it was going to be a success, and to charge people $5 a go, they knew that the minute the museum was opened, it was a cash cow. I read somewhere that there was 14 tour vehicles bought to start this tour. 14, if that's true. Priscilla, when she's interviewed, she gives the impression that the whole thing was a big gamble. She gives the impression that she felt like no one was going to turn up. She gives the impression that she stuck her neck out and took a chance to try and save Graceland. But the truth is, it was a sure thing. It was a sure thing, and she knew it. Even Memphis City knew it was a sure thing because of the amount of visitors that were always around Graceland, around the gates, trying to get to see the graves. It was a sure thing.
People who knew him say he never really recovered from his son's death. They had a very close relationship. Today, as on that day in 1977, people gathered at the gates of Graceland when they heard of Presley had died. It took about an hour for the word to reach Graceland, and it wasn't easy for the fans to accept. As one told us, it's jarring just knowing that Elvis' father has passed away too.
So you can see the fans gutted there when they find out Vernon has passed, because I think people would, after Elvis passed, Vernon was really all they had. It was the next thing, you know. Obviously Lisa was off with Priscilla. So it says, so Chris just said, people, where are we? Let me go back. She coaxed Jack as a partner. I think he saw money. I think Jack saw money. You know, pound, dollar signs. I don't think he could say no, because he was a bit, at one time he was the assistant to Morgan Maxfield. The next thing, he's a business partner. So I can see why Jack Sodden has said no, and he's lived a very wealthy life because of this partnership with Priscilla. Yeah. And he's obviously a very smart man as well, a proper businessman, an entrepreneur. There was another comment I saw that Chris made. Yeah, so the people are, you know, of course, especially in Graceland, but the Elvis fans around the world, they wanted to see Elvis's home. They wanted Elvis's home as a memorial, as a living museum. They sure did. There's no way that it could fail. There's no way it could fail. Someone was going to save it. She had to make sure it was her. That's it. And then she tricks her daughter, Lisa Marie, into thinking that if she hadn't have stepped in, it was all going to get broken up. She even says in the interview, they were going to start selling everything off, breaking everything up, taking the wallpaper off the walls. Elvis was going to be forgotten within 6 to 5 years. 6 months to 5 years. That Elvis would have been forgotten if she hadn't have saved Graceland. She says this, sat with her daughter Lisa, and Lisa at first, you know, in her young years, when she was naive, believed every word that Priscilla said. This is the sad bit. Elvis didn't need Graceland to be remembered. The fans were always going to remember Elvis, with or without Graceland. But Priscilla, again and again, and she even does it now. You see her in an interview now, and she'll go, that will not happen. When they suggested selling it, that will not happen. It's just rubbish. It was never going to happen. The worst case scenario is that Memphis City were going to take control. That is the worst case. It was never going to be broken up. I don't care what anyone says. Oh, thanks, Deborah. I think that she may have tried to influence the Colonel too. when Vernon was in hospital, that is when she went to the hospital and asked him to make her a trustee to protect Lisa's interest. Now, I know this, that obviously Elvis definitely 100% did not want Priscilla in his will. Even when, Vernon, I've read, he felt that Elvis had taken care of Priscilla financially, that she didn't need any more money. We know that she was still owed money, wasn't she? After Elvis died, she was still owed money from the deed of trust, from the lien. Yeah. So something had to be sorted there. I've always said this, that the reason Priscilla had no money is because Elvis had it all. Sorry, the other way around. Let me start again. The reason Elvis had run out of money at the time of his death is because Priscilla had it all. These installments that Elvis had promised to pay through the deed of trust, through the lien that was placed on Graceland, these payments, this is where all the money was going. Elvis had run out of money because it had all been given to Priscilla. Do you agree with that, Chris? Yeah, 63 is too young, isn't it, Tony? Very, very young. I think I was about 32. It's definitely weird when you lose a parent, isn't it? Jack is a good... I don't get a bad feeling about Jack. Oh, thanks, Denise. Denise, that's very kind of you. Denise bought me a coffee. Yoo-hoo! But she actually took on the role. She now has, when the funeral, she seemed to take on as if she was in charge. The rest of the girlfriends, they're faded into the background. And I always say this about Priscilla. Once she had the power of Graceland, everyone kissed her ass. Everyone kissed her ass. Ex-girlfriends, the Memphis Mafia, because every decision that was made went through Priscilla, didn't it? Any financial decision went through Priscilla. So she had almighty power. She could say what she wanted. And I also think, and I keep saying this, that she eventually realised, I don't think she realised it until the early 80s, that she could say what she wanted and the public would believe it. Not just the public, the press, the tabloids, the magazines, the TV companies, the interviewers around the world. Priscilla thought the public were very gullible and very naive. Priscilla realised that the public will believe everything she says. And this is where she takes on this new role as the victim. Poor me. I was imprisoned. Yeah. I had no life. I needed to find myself. She took on that role. Oh, Elvis took advantage of me. Yeah. And then she starts bringing up Elvis's faults with his temper, insinuating that he was a groomer, a controlling man. And bit by bit, Priscilla used these books, this book, to sway public opinion, to start to look at Priscilla as a victim. And I actually believe for about 30 years that the public were gullible and were tricked and conned and did believe every word that Priscilla said. I think it's different now. I think the public now are starting to understand that there's been some wrongdoing here from Priscilla. Obviously, the most recent thing is her trying to go against Lisa's wishes when she passed, you know, basically disagreeing with Lisa giving Graceland to her kids. But if you go further back, you've already mentioned it to me, Chris, Barry Siegel and his wrongdoing with Priscilla. You know, he was the manager on behalf of Lisa Marie. There was some serious wrongdoing done from Priscilla then and some big money changing hands. And if you go further back around 2003, 4, 5, you've got Priscilla selling off 85% of Elvis Presley Enterprises. She gets a massive backhander for the name Presley, for the name Graceland. So there's a lot of big money decisions here. And all of this money is filtering in to Priscilla's pocket. Some of it, not all of it, but a lot. Yeah. So some serious wrongdoing, guys. He still owed from her second divorce and she threatened to take Graceland if she wasn't paid. Yeah. We know about the deed, the lien. the installment payments to Elvis because could not afford to pay Priscilla. Elvis told one of the Memphis Mafia when he asked Elvis if Priscilla was in the will, he said no, that she'd gotten enough. Yes, and she had gotten enough. Don't forget, she wasn't supposed to have a second divorce settlement. In the first divorce settlement, she had promised really not to use the name Presley, and she said she'd had enough. She would never come back for more. She broke her promise. And I think you said it to me, and I think it as well, that Robert Kardashian, the lawyer, yeah, I think he might have been involved secretly in encouraging Priscilla to go back for a second divorce settlement. Yeah, because obviously she had to accuse Elvis of fraud, hiding his assets and lying before that she would be allowed to go back for a second divorce settlement. So a lot of wrongdoing. This could have forced Elvis to sell his recording rights pre-1973 and, you know, some serious greed, money grabbing, serious greed. Now, I don't understand how a woman that left Elvis in 72, I know it was official 73, but she left him in 72, suddenly now is more or less the owner of Graceland. It doesn't make sense. Now can demand to be buried next to Elvis. It doesn't make sense. Why do the public think it's okay that a divorcee who divorced Elvis 5 years before he died can be buried next to her ex-husband? You know? Why do the public treat Priscilla as if she was married to Elvis when he died? It doesn't add up. None of it adds up. Poor Elvis, who had to deal with such a horrible woman, and she still has the gall to say she wants to be buried next to Elvis after all the bad things she did. Shame on her. That's Lily. My friend at dialysis brought me a cappuccino this morning. Well, that's very kind, Denise. I bet you loved that, didn't you? You can't beat a nice cappuccino, Denise. All Elvis's girlfriends were at the funeral, yet she took the microphone and took the position at Lisa's mother, and she acted like she was in charge at the funeral. She definitely used Elvis's death to grab control, to push the girlfriends out, to show the Memphis Mafia, I'm now the boss. That happened. I don't care what anyone says. The girl who never met the king, she got the credit for opening Graceland, but she was never there to all the hard work. She never visited Memphis. Memphis, Tennessee was beneath her. She was in LA leading her glamorous lifestyle. We know that she preferred LA. She didn't even like Memphis. She didn't even like Graceland. The girl who never met the king. You've done some really good comments lately. And I've really enjoyed your comments. Thank you so much. So Priscilla is in Memphis now than when, yeah, I agree, Deborah. She goes to Memphis now more than she did back then. She liked being a celebrity lifestyle, Hollywood, LA, California girl, didn't she? What she did was stir curiosity about her life with Elvis. Everyone was hungry to hear anything about Elvis, and she took on the person who would know. Linda Thompson was trying to insert herself. But look, I know, Chris, I know that the story with Linda Thompson is complicated. I've read a fair part of this book. I know that the Linda Thompson story is complicated. I know that. Linda was considered the throwback from his divorce. I still say this. I do believe the first year they were together, Linda helped Elvis move forward, move away from the divorce, the horrific abuse that was the way he was treated by Priscilla concerning Mike Stone. I do think that Linda was a stepping stone away from that. So I'm grateful for that. Deborah, I didn't like her and still don't like her. She was mean to Lisa. We could talk about Scientology. I personally think Priscilla has been very cruel to Lisa for decades. For decades. She should be ashamed of herself. Priscilla had a boyfriend at the time, Michael Garibaldi, helped do some designing in Graceland in preparation for selling the items. But in the end, Chris, wasn't it Michael Garibaldi that told Lisa what was going on? What was going on with Barry Siegel? Yeah, do you know what? With all the ex-girlfriends, come on, it's not straightforward. You know, I've got Ginger's book as well. I've read some chapters in that. But my thing with the ex-girlfriends is, if they're speaking well of Elvis, I'm talking about now, yeah? If they're speaking well of Elvis, I like that. That pleases me. There's too many people that have spoken incorrectly about Elvis, and that needs to stop. That just needs to stop. I don't think it's fair on Elvis. He can't defend himself. This is a big part of the reason we're called Defending Elvis Presley, because he can't defend himself. He can't do nothing. Elvis can't get up and go, oi, that never happened. So we the fans do. Let's play a bit more of this, guys.
Across the street, a new message went up on a marquee at a souvenir shop. And back at the mansion, Vernon's brother Vester struggled to tell the fans what had happened.
I'm very sorry, folks, that we're not able to tour today. We will be open maybe Friday if everything works out all right. We just had bad luck this morning.
The gates were closed at Graceland today in memory of Mr. Presley. There'll be no more tours for a while. Vernon Presley will be buried on Thursday at Graceland next to his son. A private funeral will be held Thursday morning at 11. And we will have more about the life of Vernon Presley later in the broadcast. We'll be talking to some of his closest friends and associates, and we'll look at what progress has been made on something he hoped to see, a museum honoring Elvis. Today puts a special project in limbo once again. That project is a memorial to his son. There have been lots of proposals, everything from a museum for the singer to changing the city's name to Elvis Presley, Tennessee. The museum idea seems most accepted, but there is debate on whether to build a new building or move everything into Graceland. Chandler says he hopes negotiations can continue on a project he says will mean a lot to the family, Presley fans, and the city.
Of course, we have been in touch. As a matter of fact, we have an appointment now with Beecher Smith, who, of course, is the attorney for Elvis's estate. I don't know whether he'll be handling Vernon's estate, into which most of this memorabilia and estate will fall, except, of course, the home will still remain.
Isn't Beecher Smith the guy that got rid of Colonel Tom Parker's 50-50 deal? Is that him?
And a lot of the memorabilia will go to the daughter. We'll continue to go as quietly and as quickly as we can to find out who will represent that aspect of the estate and to deal with them in hopes that we can make this a part of our city for the rest of time.
Chandler praised the late Vernon.
So you can tell, guys, that it was all at hand.
Presley is a great citizen of this community. Vernon Presley was a private man. He stayed out of the public eye, didn't have many close friends. Today, though, I did talk with a few people who knew him and Elvis pretty well. This photo of father and son was taken on June 26, 1977 in Indianapolis. It was Elvis' last concert before he died. 2 years later, to the day, Vernon Presley is dead. Dick Grobe was chief of security for the Presleys for 10 years. Today, he told me about Mr. Presley.
He, I think, deteriorated very rapidly.
Now, I've watched quite a few interviews with Dick Grobe. He talks about a lot about Elvis's casket and what went on with the casket when it was moved around and stuff like that. It's very interesting.
Since his son's death, with all the pressures and the responsibilities that were heaped upon him, the people that necessarily filed suit and those that tried to gain things that weren't rightfully theirs, he took these all very personal, and I think that contributed greatly to his death today.
Grobe spent a good deal of time with Vernon Presley during the last year and a half of his life. So did Charlie Hodge, who began working with Elvis back in the late 50s.
Now, I think we're all pretty agreed that Charlie Hodge was one of the good ones, the ones that you could trust. Do you agree with that, Chris? The other thing I will say is he still is a bit friendly with Priscilla. That does concern me. He's still a bit friendly with Priscilla.
From my earliest recollections, which is 1958, when I first met Vernon in Germany, he's always a...
And I've listened to Charlie Hodge. He said he could hear Elvis crying himself to sleep in the army after his mother had passed in 1959.
Very humorous man with a great sense of humor.
And Clarence Carter also met Vernon Presley in the 50s. Over the years, they saw a lot of each other, had dinner together frequently. Carter remembers one time when his nephew was there.
We'd had dinner and talked, and they had gone home, and the little nephew, some 10 or 12 years old, he came to me and he said, "Uncle Clarence, he's just people like us, isn't he?" I think that pretty well describes him. He was that type person. And he was that way to everyone that he met.
So sad,
The flower
guys.
displays arrived at Graceland today, memorializing Vernon Presley at the flowers shop across the street from the Presley mansion. Flowers arrived all morning long from florists across the city. Then they were delivered later to the mansion itself. Services for Vernon Presley, by the way, will be held at Graceland tomorrow morning. Today, the coffin is being kept open for friends and family to pay their last respects. The funeral will be closed to the public. Vernon will be buried at the Memorial Garden next to the mansion where Elvis and Gladys Presley are also buried.
We checked by Graceland tonight, and everything appears to be in order for tomorrow's funeral. Vernon Presley will be buried on the grounds at 11 in the morning. He will be placed beside his wife and son, Elvis Presley. The funeral is only for family and close friends. Vernon died yesterday from heart failure while hospitalized at Baptist Hospital. He was 63. Meanwhile, Mayor Wyatt Chandler said today the city is still interested in buying Graceland.
Mayor Wyatt Chandler today.
So there's always a reminder, the city were always going to sort things out for Elvis. The amount of money that was going to be brought into Memphis with Elvis Presley's home, Graceland, it was a no-brainer, to be honest with you. They knew they needed to save Elvis's home, so Priscilla did not save Graceland.
They said the city is still interested in buying the Graceland mansion from the family of the late Elvis Presley in order to establish a permanent memorial to the famous singer. Chandler now says he'll negotiate with a Memphis bank, which is acting as the executor of the Presley estate. Tomorrow, Elvis' father, Vernon Presley, will be buried beside his son on the mansion's ground.
Well, they laid Elvis's father to rest today. Funeral services for Vernon Presley were today at Graceland. It was a private funeral for the Presleys who are left and close friends.
So I agree with what Chris just said. It was never going to happen. It was always going to be a memorial, a museum for Elvis.
What's your name, son? Judge Evans. Judge Evans. Okay.
Good to see you, Judge. Good to see you. Doing all right? Okay.
Uncle Vester was there. So were Colonel Parker, Lisa Marie, and Priscilla. The best the couple of hundred fans at the gate could do was watch for someone famous to arrive and strain for a glimpse of activity up at the mansion. Kathy Bye was there because Vernon used to wave to her.
I just wanted to do something for his family and show him that I appreciated him and, you know, glad that they had Elvis and glad he did what he did.
The service began at 11. We don't know much about what happened, but they played some of Elvis's religious recordings, including Peace and...
So I think in the distance here, you can see little Lisa. It's so sad. Do you imagine what Lisa went through? She loses her father, then her grandfather so quickly. Let's just see if there's any sound here, guys. We'll just watch this. I've got to go now, guys, but let's just watch this little bit here. Can you see Lisa there? So sad. Just horrible. Okay, guys, I'm going to cut it off there. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'll be back. I'll be back, guys. Hopefully we can finish this off. And I hope you enjoyed it. very interesting. Thank you, everyone that joined in. Thanks, Chris, for your brilliant comments. Chris is a wealth of knowledge. So, gotta go, guys. Thanks to all of you. I don't know if I'll be back on tonight. Probably not. But I'll be back in the morning. Take care, guys. All the best to you. Thanks, Deborah. Thanks, guys. Love you all. You're the best. Tony, sending you love. All of you guys, thank you so much for coming together, and we all have our great little chat. Take care, everyone, and I send you all love.